he had a choice on how he was going to respond to the rest of his life. And it's the same with you. And don't let Satan win. Honestly, what you need to do is say, let's start a compassion ministry. And what we're going to do, he has 1 billion stars he's in control of. He can deal with your, and that God's saying, I want that. I want you to treat me like you would treat your best friend. Those are real feelings that we think we got to keep to ourselves, like, shh, we can know, God, where we can't know. He knows. All right, good morning. Welcome back to our Women's Bible Study. For those of you that don't know anything about us and you're just tuning in, if you want to know more about our ministry, go to womensbiblestudy.com. There you can find out everything you want to know about us. And we are in actually the middle of a 2-part series right now on sex trafficking. The guest speaker today, Miss Vanessa Morris with Selah Freedom. And so we're doing a question and answer with her right now. We've got a lot of questions from the audience, and we want to make sure that we answer all of them as many as we can. So I want you to thank Miss Brandy Doolittle, because actually she called me and she's like, you need to have Selah Freedom here. And I'm like, oh, we usually don't do that, and it's the end of the year, and blah, blah, blah. And then I was talking to my daughter, and we ended up talking about my granddaughter, who's like the whole 13-year-old, and in the midst of it, we were talking about how careful we have to be as parents, and it just kind of spurred this whole thing on. So, Brandy, thank you for all you did to make this possible.
Give her a hand, guys. Love Brandy.
All right, so a couple of real quick questions that I had. So let's finish your story, because you did not live with your mom for a while, and then you said the state pretty much put you back with her.
Yeah, so just a little more in depth about my story. When I was first born, I had amazing, amazing family, and my parents essentially gave me up to one of my aunts and uncles, and they raised me up in the house of God. They so poured love all over me. And then when I was 9 years old, I mean, how many of you know we have a very flawed system, you know? And the courts gave me back to my biological parents, and that introduced me back into living in the chaos with my mom. We lived in and out of hotels. We lived in condemned houses. Men were constantly circulating our home. And so I watched my mom be sold from a very close range. And she was grooming me without her maybe even knowing it to follow in her footsteps, teaching me the tools of the trade, teaching me how to act with men, what you can get from them. She was never sober, I think, my entire life. Because she had to stay under some sort of substance in order to do what she had to do. And then when I was about 15 years old, a miracle happened. I had another aunt and uncle who were pastors, and they took me in. And my mom had recently found out that she had several diseases because of that lifestyle. She couldn't take care of me anyways. I was basically living on whoever couch would have me. And my dad said, I can't take care of you anymore. And my aunt and uncle took me in that were pastors and raised me up in the ministry. So I say only God can take the daughter of a prostitute and make them a pastor's kid, but that's sort of how God works. And so I've seen what the love of Christ looks like, but I've also seen basically what the pit of hell looks like. And living in that atmosphere with my mom, watching her be bought and sold, watching her have to become someone that she wasn't, day in and day out. Those memories will never leave me. But because I know Jesus, and because I have a heart for the least of these, I know that that's why God brought me back into this, so that I can be a voice for women who are just like my mom, thanks to Selah Freedom.
Exactly. I love how you say you're not victims, but you're survivors.
Yes.
And you also say you go from trauma to a platform. And I love that. It's like God really is great at redeeming this. So many people feel like I can't get out of this,
right.
and yet God does redeem your situation, and it's kind of a really awesome thing. Another thing, some of you here actually are involved with going down to the strip clubs, and you do try to meet with women, and your goal is to get them out of the strip clubs. Now, you made a really good point last night. You said it takes 7 to 9 points of contact?
Yes.
Before they will even consider does that mean like you need to bring coffee to them? Like what does that look like?
So it's so much of it is relationship building, but also so, trust has been completely broken for these women. They don't look at you and they're like, oh, arms wide open, come rescue me. Can I tell you that they don't even identify as being involved in sex trafficking? None of the women that we serve just come to us and they're like, oh, I'm being trafficked. We can identify that, and we can help them come to the realization, like, this wasn't okay. This wasn't your choice, and when we use our outreach team to go on the streets or partner with law enforcement to do ride-alongs and have a presence where these women are at, or they're now like calling ads on Craigslist and what was Backpage.com and telling them about Sale of Freedom. When we have ministries that are going into the strip clubs and brothels, all of these, we have sex trade support group where women can come. All of these things are touch points, and we know that it takes 7 to 9 touch points with a woman before she is truly going to be able to receive help. Even a woman that comes into our assessment home, which is the first phase of our residential program, typically if she's going to run, it will be within the first 14 days because they really don't believe that there's a way out and that they can do this. They believe this is what they were designed for and there is no hope. And when she runs, we've had women that have left our program and then come back and they know I'm one step closer. I'm one step closer. And so that's an amazing thing to watch because it's so many times the same cycle as like domestic abuse. We've probably all known a woman and we're like, why does she stay in that? And it takes 7 to 9 touch points before she even believes that she's worth and that she can receive that kind of help.
That's really encouraging to a lot of people that do this here. The other question that I had, so I get to have my questions done first. What about...
She has the mic, y'all. She can do that.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of sad. I love it. I'm like, yeah, sorry, mine first. But it's actually probably yours too. Tell me about because a lot of parents here, what do you do to protect your children?
Yeah.
Because we didn't have the internet like we do now. It is a big deal. You said dating sites.
Absolutely.
So tell us, what can people do?
Right, that's a great question, and that's actually on several of the questions we received, so that's wonderful. How do you protect your kids? When you hear about this issue, it can sort of come at you and you're like, oh God, what do we do, And it can be overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. Last night when we were at dinner, we were talking about this, and we're like, what's the most important thing for parents and their kids? I said, awareness, like talking about it. Don't let the internet teach your kids about relationships and sex and dating, and you are the parent or the grandparent, you are the influence. And, teaching your kids, like, what tactics might a trafficker use online? Maybe you have I used this example last night, you have your 13-year-old daughter who is really into soccer. And, 60-year-old sex trafficker Joe over here, I just made that up, that's not his name. So we're gonna call him that. He's over here and he is literally lurking, stalking the internet for young girls, okay, that he can take advantage of, build a relationship with. And so he goes to Google, he gets a picture of a 14-year-old boy, makes it his profile picture, makes this whole Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, whatever the profile might be, Instagram, and he approaches your daughter and says, I just moved to Phoenix. We just moved from across the country and I was really into soccer over there, and I just started going to whatever your local middle or high school is, and I see that you're really into soccer. Like, where do you practice? Or, wow, you're really beautiful. Like, what team do you play for? Do you have some friends that maybe we could get together? And, what music do you like? Like, building very slowly that relationships, because he's never going to say, hey, I'm a sex trafficker. No, but teaching your kids how to have privacy settings on their social media, not to ever accept or talk to a friend. I mean, we as adults, anyone ever got a friend request from someone they didn't know? Probably anyone on social media. So teaching your kids never to do that, monitoring their social media, being very aware that just because you have access to one profile doesn't mean they don't have 4 other profiles. Having the policy that at any point in time you can grab their phone, having their passwords, having their location set so that you know where they're at. Seriously, some some parents need to really get educated on being more tech savvy, because our kids are born with a device in their hand almost. And they have access to everything right here. And did you know that an iPhone comes set for the factory settings are explicit? So your son or your daughter can say, Siri, show me, and it's going to come right up. You have to be able to set the parental controls, set what they can see, who they can talk to, all of that. Knowing your kid's friends. Your 14-year-old doesn't need a 19-year-old boyfriend. Teaching your daughter that just got that job as a server or a hostess, that regular customer that comes in, she doesn't need to spill her business to. Because they're very crafty, guys. They keep a record of, oh, she likes this kind of music, she wears this kind of clothing, she hangs out with this group, whatever that might be, and they can use those things to build relationships with them and ultimately to coerce them into something that they never thought they'd get into. And you can go to Selah Freedom's website and access a step-by-step for how to change the settings on your child's phone. There are different resources there for how to talk to kids of all ages about this issue, and so I recommend that you go there as well, because that's a great resource for parents.
Cheyenne, I need your phone. Hand it over. All right, on to your questions. Here you go. When a child approaches you in a meeting, do you immediately take that child and not let them return home, or does it take time to help them?
Right, so currently our homes house survivors that are 18 plus, and our teen prevention program works with minors. And so if a child discloses something in one of our programs, a lot of times they'll do journaling, they'll do group counseling, but it'll be that individual relationship or that journal entry that a child will disclose something more than in a group setting. And so if that happens, then we go to the leaders of that group and let them know about the incident. And if it hasn't already been disclosed, then of course you have to follow up with law enforcement and with child protection. And we always would be the advocate for a child. Like, we would never let something go unnoted and unreported.
I love it that you work with police officers, because many people are the prostitute, or not prostitute, I wiped that word, sorry. The women that are trafficked, they're used to running from the law, and you really are teaching the law enforcement that these women are the way they are because of something that happened in their life. You need to come alongside of them and help them, not like there's reasons for it. So I appreciated that. Someone said they're going back to Wisconsin this summer. Can they go visit your Wisconsin facility?
That's a great question. I would love to talk to you after this.
Except you're not going to be here.
Okay. Well, that's okay. She has my contact information, and we'd love to talk to you.
I'll do that. While the girls are at Selah, do they keep going to public schools?
So in our homes currently, we have 18 plus survivors, and so we help them. So many of them come in and they don't have their GED, or maybe they have their GED and they need some refresher courses, or maybe they're ready to go to college. So we partner with different colleges in whatever area our home would be in. We have tutors that are volunteers. We could not do this without volunteers that come in and tutor the women, help them get their GED. And it's incredible to watch the brilliance of these women appear, because they thought for so long that they were stupid. They thought for so long this is all they were good for, and that's simply not true. And so then we watch them get like full ride scholarships to college, join the National Honor Society, graduate with honors. All of these things wouldn't have been possible without Selah Freedom, and they would have never known that they were possible if they wouldn't have got that piece of education in our program.
Okay. Brandy, you went to, literally before she even brought this, she went to Selah Freedom. So the question back on Wisconsin is, like, I'm assuming the answer is going to be yes, but you went and saw their whole facilities in Florida. So that was a great part, because it's hard to have ministries come in when you really have never seen them.
Yeah, and actually I think one of the questions in there is about like the being anonymous, and I'm not going to tell you all the address this morning of our safe houses. If I told you, I'd have to kill you. No, I'm just kidding. No, but we do want people that are in this mission with us together. We have hundreds of of volunteers that work with our survivors. We have donors that partner with us, advisory board members, ambassadors, people across the nation that will come and do what we call an immersion tour. And it's really amazing because it gives you an up-close and personal look at what sex trafficking looks like and what our homes look like. You can get an opportunity to meet some of the women in our home, and it will change your life forever, and we don't broadcast where there's confidentiality waivers and all of that that's involved in it. But, one person asked us one time, aren't you worried about traffickers showing up on your doorstep? Like, aren't they going to come back for what's theirs? I mean, you think they're making $250,000 per girl. They might have a dozen girls in their stable because it's totally like they're dehumanized, and so that's what they call it. Aren't they going to come back for their moneymaker? But I want you to think about that story I told you about the runaways. And there are an exponential amount of runaways on the streets. And when one leaves, there's another younger one just waiting to take their place. And if you lose your iPhone, what do? You go buy a new one. And so we haven't had traffickers show up on our doorstep because they can just go find another innocent child.
That's a good point. Where are the mothers of these young girls who are being abused? That's a great question. Like, hello, your husband is in abusing our daughter. What is the problem here?
So sometimes they really don't know.
Okay.
And that's the truth. Sometimes they don't. But sometimes they do. And they don't want to face that. And we've actually had survivors who were on staff with us, which is another amazing thing about Selah Freedom. We want to lift survivors up and empower them. But, she said that her mom knew and she just didn't want to face it. I was speaking at a church a few months ago, and probably 65, 70-year-old little deacon's wife came up to me and she said, "I'm so glad you came and that you talked about this hard issue, because that happened to me when I was little. I was sexually abused at the hands of my stepfather, and I told my mom, and her mom said, 'You better never say that again. You should be ashamed of yourself. I don't ever want to hear it again.'" And shut her down right there. Can I tell you that kids that aren't believed, they root that down, and that shame is something they carry with them, and so many times they don't think that anyone will believe them, and if they do tell and then they're shut down, that happens too.
Yeah.
That happens too. So it's definitely unique to every situation, but sometimes it's a dark issue that parents don't want to face is happening right in their own household.
I asked you too last night about counseling. Counseling is very important. You have they have a counseling group called, what's it called?
So we partner with Dr. Jason Quintal and Associates. They do something, and we do this in all of our programs in every state that we're in, called Rapid Resolution Trauma Therapy. And we could not do what we do without them. It's incredible. And the same young woman who was scalped and left for dead in a garbage bag, or pimped out by her dad and locked in a closet unless she was let out while she was working. The same girl that slept in the fetal position on the floor with the lights on is able to go to a session and then walk out, and it's like the circuit of trauma in her brain has been disconnected. And one thing that Dr. Quintal always says is it's about getting the bad news out and the good news in, and I love that, and that's extremely effective. We also use horse therapy. So many of these women can trust an animal before they'll ever trust a person.
Yeah, that's true.
Art therapy, they are insanely creative and gifted. That's another thing. Pet therapy, it's really amazing. We try to give them counseling. We have on-staff clinicians, try to give them access to every resource they need for healing.
Okay. That's awesome. And you said it takes a lot less time with the rapid one
Yes.
than it does. Like, so many people are in therapy. But I guess I just wanted to say, if it happened to you when you were younger, it stays with you, you said.
Absolutely.
And you really do need to go and talk to someone about it and get some help to get past that. I like that. Get rid of the bad and start inserting the good. Because Jesus is the great healer on that.
Yeah, and there's a reason that you're a survivor.
Exactly.
And there's a reason the enemy brought something against you. You are powerful, you have purpose. And the enemy's tried to shut your mouth and steal that from an early age.
Yeah. And I love it that they have a platform. Now they can go and say, nope, sorry, not happening again.
Right.
Does this only happen to girls?
It doesn't only happen to girls. We said earlier, 1 in 3 girls are sexually abused and 1 in 5 boys. But that's just what's reported, ladies. The scope could be so much larger, but it does happen to boys.
Along that, are there programs for boys?
There are, but Selah Freedom only serves females.
Only serves girls. Okay, but there is. Okay, what is offered for the 1 in 5 boys? That's a great question.
Yeah.
Like for the girls, it's like, oh, I want a pretty dress. The guys, it's like what?
Yeah, so, we teach a course called CSEC, the Commercial Sexual Exploitation of Children, and in that we talk about the boys that are on the streets, and, so many of them, like the girls, they were runaways, and it doesn't take long for them to realize that they're in need. And one survivor that was a boy, he said, I never considered myself homosexual. I never wanted to do a sexual act with a man. But when you're that hungry, you'll do whatever it takes. Okay. And just that survival mode,
Do most of them end up in the homosexual lifestyle because they just assumed that because someone did that to them that that's who they are?
I think that there's confusion about their identity on all levels, whether they're boys or girls. I mean, confusion about their identity on every level. And to think that you have no value beyond what your body can be used for another person, that's definitely a tool of the enemy that comes in.
Do women pimp out as well?
Yes.
Do you have women pimps? Okay.
This is big money business, guys. I mean, this has surpassed the gun trafficking industry. It's a $35 billion industry, $150 billion worldwide. I mean, this is big money business. And women are definitely involved in it as well. And there have been arrests where men and women have been arrested for trafficking together. I mean, can you imagine that's what you do with your spouse? That's the business you all do together. But it does happen.
Yeah. Where do girls go their rest? Well, first, before we answer this one, Phoenix is the largest hub for trafficking. Is that what you said? Or one of the largest? I can't remember what you said.
So trafficking is definitely extremely high in Phoenix, in Arizona specifically. And, here there's definitely a need. It's not the top that's reported. But what I want to say is that the reports, I would take them loosely because we're still seeing numbers that come out and change all the time. We're still seeing, the whole 1 in 3 girls, 1 in 5 boys. Guys, that's just what's reported. So many of these kids are still silent. So many of these children are still living in abuse that they think that's all life has for them, and they won't speak up about it.
Okay. Where the girls are rescued here in Phoenix right now, is there any place that they go to here at this particular time? Or
yeah, so this is
Brandy, you could probably even ask.
Brandy could speak more to this because she's done so much research in Phoenix. But do you want to come up, Brandy?
Tell me about are there other places here that right now?
Yeah, there's some places here right now.
She said, yeah, there are a few places here.
Yeah, we're working on getting Selah Freedom.
Yeah.
Brandy's they're working really hard to get Selah here.
Selah Freedom here.
To get their,
and I wanted Brandy to share that because, she has done so much research. And the thing is, there are programs here. There's nothing like Selah Freedom. There's nothing that's taking this holistic approach of, you're a teenager and we reach you. You're on the streets, you're in the jails, and we reach you. We have a home where you can come. We have so many resources. We have just every different component that you could possibly need to get healing and restoration. And Selah Freedom is leading the fight nationally, and that's why there's such a need here.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, let's see. Do you reach out to group homes, wards of state kids?
Yeah, so our teen prevention program has gone into group homes, and we can do that in foster homes. We can do it in girls programs. We can do it in all different settings, and that's pretty amazing because so many times that has also been seen as a breeding ground. Kids that are in the system, kids that are in foster care, so many times they are seen as sort of the forgotten, invisible children, and pimps know that. Traffickers know that, and so they know exactly how to prey on them, and it can many times be a breeding ground for sex trafficking, and that's why it's so important for us to go in and work with those young girls.
Someone asked me a question. Do you have a program to teach very young kids? Like 5 years old?
We've gone into a first grade classroom before, and we tailor it to the needs of any audience that we're speaking to. But, one of the most powerful things that I can remember coming out of that is having a little girl in a young classroom raise her hand and say, what if I'm afraid to tell that it's happening to me? What if I'm afraid to tell? And so because of that, because of making it appropriate for that audience, we're able to go in and bring hope to those kids and connect them to the resources they need to get free.
How does it, do the schools, will they work with you? Like if you went to the schools and said, or their elementary schools, and said, look, we have this program, can we talk to the kids, and would they let you?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes, yeah. We have gone and spoken to schools and gone and spoken to public schools, to private schools. Really, anywhere that we can go is where we want to go, because we know that there is so much darkness in every realm, and we want to bring light to it no matter where that is.
Okay. And I think, too, for Phoenix here, most of the places that you go to are state-run, is that correct? And you guys are, you can share the gospel to where most, if you're state-run, you can't really pour your, you need Jesus and that kind of, am I correct on that?
Yeah, so one of the greatest things about seeing God in our homes is seeing women, like I talked about that power of choice earlier. When you came to Jesus, it was your choice. When you surrendered your life, it was because you built a relationship and you chose that to happen. And the women in our programs, they haven't had choice at all. So for them to come in and for us to first be able to just love on them and show them the power of Jesus and show them, that they're unconditionally valued and that we're not expecting anything in return, that is the gospel. Mm-hmm. That's what it's all about. And then for them to come to a coach and say, I want to say the sinner's prayer, or I want to get baptized. It's an amazing thing to watch God be big enough to be God.
Exactly. Someone said she works with strip clubs here. Where do you find help here? Like, Brandy, you could even maybe, I wish I had another microphone for you.
That's okay. That's why we want Sail of Freedom here.
I know.
Yeah. It's that next step.
That's why we're working so hard at bringing Sail of Freedom here, is because their success rate and all the areas that they cover, it just envelops every
Okay.
aspect
Yeah.
that like no other program here.
She said basically Selah, there's no other program out there that does the thing that Selah does.
Yeah, and
and you've checked them out all here.
She
in
spoke
Phoenix
about the
too.
success rate. I think that's why there's such a need, because 75% of the women in our residential program don't return to the streets. And in this population, that sort of recidivism rate is extremely high.
Why would somebody go back?
Why would someone go back?
Like, okay, you're giving them all this
Right.
help. Why would they leave?
That's a great question. Why would they go back? Why wouldn't they just leave? The invisible chains are so much stronger than anything visible. We don't go in and we see a woman who's like chained to a radiator or a bed. No, we see a woman who you might not see the trafficker, but I can promise you he's watching. And he's been watching, and he's been with her for years, and he has complete control. Stockholm Syndrome is so real in the women that we serve. That trauma bonding, that identifying with your captor is so real. And he has manipulated them for so long and brainwashed them for so long that they believe they cannot trust anyone else, that he is their source of everything, that they shouldn't contact anyone else, that people like us couldn't be trusted, and so he's done a very good job at isolating her and making him be her world, and she really believes that, because even though he might be pimping her out, at the end, if she does good, he's pleased with her and he tells her that he loves her, and deep down, she's still that 7-year-old little girl that just wants to be loved.
Where are all the mothers of the abused? Did we already ask that?
Yeah,
okay,
we already
did that.
talked
Okay.
about that
At the homes, let's see. At the homes, do people come to help and assist in any particular way?
Yes.
I too was a victim.
Yes. The answer is yes. We could not do what we do without volunteers. We have hundreds of volunteers.
So if you open a Selah, people could actually
yes,
volunteer
whether
and
it's
be
tutoring, teaching life skills, gardening, Bible studies, coming in and teaching about finance, or helping them learn about going to the college campus and what that might look like for them, teaching them parenting skills, leading a counseling group, coming in and cooking meals with the women, joining our awareness team. Like, there are a multitude of ways that you can get involved as a volunteer.
Perfect. Specifically, how and what do people pray for? That was one of the questions.
I love that question,
Yeah.
because we covet your prayers. We need your prayers. Pray for our staff. I mean, like I said earlier, we are in spiritual warfare. Mm-hmm. Pray for a covering for our staff. Pray for the marriages of our staff, the children of our staff. Pray for the women in our program to continue to just have like the scales fall off their eyes, to see who God truly created them to be, to see their true value. Pray that we'll continue to be able to expand so that we can bring solutions into every area of need. Pray for the law enforcement that we work for. Pray for the funding to come in to meet every need, because not any survivor doesn't pay a dime for what we give to her. We would have a lot of empty houses. You know, pray for the other volunteers that are serving. There are so many different ways, and we really need your prayers.
How are these girls found by Selah? Like, how do you find them? How do you end up getting them into your program?
Yeah, so our outreach program is a huge component of that, going into the jails, going into the streets, doing ride-alongs and stings with law enforcement, where before they would just take a girl to jail for prostitute, right? Now they see, oh, there's something deeper, and they'll call Selah Freedom in to offer her help. We have a partnership in the legal system, in the court system, where instead of going to jail, a woman can come and actually receive solutions and help and restoration through Selah Freedom. We have a national hotline that they can call, an intake line where they can call if they want to come into Selah Freedom's program. And so when we're out there on the streets, or it's on our website as well, but we're giving out cards, and none of them say, hey, if you're being trafficked, you know, because their pimp might see that and they might get in trouble. But it just says, ever wonder if there's more, and it has a phone number, you know, and so we receive calls like that as well.
There's some young girls here, and so the question is, what is the language that these girls need to be aware of online or on Facebook, or, you know, what do they need to be wary of? Like, and I think you already hit that as far as don't be friends with someone you don't know, because you don't really know who's on the other end of that. But is there something that they should be looking out for?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that the whole, you know, what we talked about before with the predators approaching, you know, kids who might not know them and then accept them, or, you know, just being really aware of maybe like an older boyfriend, or the constant flattery, or the buying something like, oh, I'll get you the new iPhone, or I'll get you that designer handbag all of a sudden, you know, like, whereas that 14-year-old girl wasn't carrying that before, you know, oh, let me take you to go get your nails done, your hair done, like all of this is a grooming process. So being really aware of that.
Okay.
And if they're trying to isolate you, you know?
Okay,
like,
they try to get you away from your parents.
Yeah.
Or, oh, your parents shouldn't say that, or they shouldn't.
Yeah, don't tell. Like the secret thing, like secrets are never going to be a good thing.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Okay. How do we get involved in raising money? That's a good question. Out front, so Donna, your Bible study stuff is right here. Is that correct? So if you want Donna's Bible study, sign up right here. Selah Freedom is out front, and there's a sign-up sheet right there. If you sign that up, I'm assuming, Brandy, you can get probably will, and both of you will be able to deal with that. And then you can explain to them how they can raise money.
Yeah,
and stuff,
so if you want to get involved in any way, or even if you just want to like get some updates, I promise we won't spam you, but we want to keep you up to date on all things Selah and how you can continue to get involved. There's a sign-up sheet out there, several ways that you can get involved. I mentioned hosting a party with a purpose, joining our awareness team, inviting Selah Freedom to come share at your event. So many different ways that you can get involved. Fundraising is huge, and so, or gifting a home, you know, all of those different things. If there's something I haven't said that you're thinking of, chances are if you can dream it, you can do it. And so I really encourage you all, please, even if it's just like leaving your email, just leave it on that front table on that sign-in sheets. There's also some informational flyers out there as well.
You made a really good point for parents and grandparents. When your kids decide to talk to you about something, do not flip out. Explain that.
Yeah, we were talking about that last night. You know, if a survivor comes to someone on our staff and just like, yeah, my boyfriend put me on this website and I was really uncomfortable with it, and then he made me sleep with these guys, we're not like, you know, when you come to God with your sin, can you imagine if you were like, God, I've really struggled in this area, like I've fallen short, and he's like, oh my God, get Gabriel. Like, come on, like, bring him in for this one. Like, I think of that, that's kind of silly, but I do think of it that way. You know, if your child comes and says, like, Mom, like, this is happening, or I've befriended this person or this person, you know, like, I sent a sext to so-and-so, and then it got spread around, you know, that's another way. Like, their boyfriend could be like, hey, send me a pic. and they send an inappropriate picture, and then all of a sudden it's like, if you don't send me more, because it's that control, then I'm going to put this all over Facebook. You don't really want to ruin your parents' lives, do you? You know, you don't really want to be put all over social media, do you? And so it's that control factor. If your daughter comes, or even your son comes and shares something like this with you, it's really important not to freak out, but to be like, okay, let's go at this together. You know, like, they're coming to you because they're trusting. And, you know, as a child, when something happens, you want so badly to just be able to trust. You want somebody so badly to invade your space, even though you insist that you don't. When I was a kid, I remember one time opening the door, and it was a cop on the other side. And my mom was passed out with whoever her boyfriend was at the time in the back room of a condemned house that we lived in. And I answered the door, and I wasn't in school. Here I was, like, in this property that people shouldn't have even been in, with my mom drugged up in the back with a guy who had come in the night before. And the officer knocked on the door, and I went and answered, and he said, "Is everything okay here?" And in my eyes, I was like, "Dear God, please, like, please help me, please." And I said, "Yeah, everything's okay." And he left. And can I tell you that even if your child lives in a, like, great home and you're a great parent, you have this safe place, if something happens and you have a gut feeling, and, like, trust me, your kid is waiting for you to invade their space, and for you to ask them, for you to get involved. Kids want boundaries, even if they fight them, and it's so important to protect them with those things.
Exactly. That's a lot. That's a lot of information. You also said something really interesting last night, because I don't know, you know, we know people that their kids are just a disaster because the parents are a disaster. And I always say, how did you feel like when you moved from your aunt's house to, where you originally lived, and then you went with your mom, they were forced you back. Because I said, how did you cope with that? Because you said the first night you were sad and crying.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you go instantly into survival mode. And I remember being on a bed and, like, crying because I just wanted, like, my normal aunt and uncle back. I wanted, like, that life back, and I knew that it had been ripped from me, and I had no voice and no say in it. And I knew that living with my mom was going to be like hell. I knew it was going to be terrible, and everything that I had wanted to get away from before. And I remember sitting in bed, and I was crying because, to me, my aunt and uncle were my mom and dad. They were so good to me and loved me so much, and I was crying because I missed them, and I knew I wasn't allowed to see them or talk to them at all. And my mom came in, and she grabbed me by the back of my hair, and she said, "If I ever hear you say their name again, like, you don't even want to know the consequences. You better not talk about it." And from that time on, I knew, like, you keep your mouth shut. You don't talk about stuff. You don't tell teachers what's going on. You don't tell law enforcement. You don't let anyone know that it bothers you. And you sort of get this whole dissociative thing where you're unplugged from everything because you don't want to let anything in, and you don't want to let anything out that could get you in trouble. And so for me, like, that was my survival mode.
So kids really go into survival mode. So let's say out here you've got your daughter's friend. You just kind of don't feel really comfortable.
Yeah.
Where do you even start with that?
I would say that if you have a gut feeling, God gave us an intuition for a reason, and many times it's right. And so many times it's about relationship. You're not just going to go up to a random kid that you don't know and say, "Hey, are you being abused?" Because it's not going to work that way. It's about building relationship, and chances are, talk to your daughter. Have these open conversations with your children. This doesn't need to be like the big deal conversation. It needs to be a regular conversation. It needs to become very normal in your vocabulary. And, chances are this friend may have already opened up to your daughter about something. And if you have any suspicion of any kind of sex trafficking, you can call the national hotline, and the phone number for that is on our website and on the flyers out there. And if you ever get anything disclosed to you, you have to report it. And so it's really important to have these conversations and let your home be a safe place where these conversations can happen.
Okay. Wow. Vanessa, thank you. We got to get you to the airport. So,
guys, thank you so much. Thank you.
Did this. So thank you. Brandy, come up. Let's pray really quick. Brandy is here. How do we get people in touch with you? Because I know
They can call me or email me.
how do we got to put your name out there someplace.
B Doolittle.
So B Doolittle.
DOOLITTLE
Okay, be Doolittle at Cox.net, and then you can talk to them as far as what you're, because Brandy's really pushing hard to get Selah here, and we want you guys here too.
Yeah, and
so.
if you guys ever want to contact us directly, contact us on our website, or just info@selahfreedom.com, and we would love to connect with you guys.
Okay, Brandy, thank you for all you did to bring this, to make this possible. I'm so proud of you. And let's pray. Let's just pray that Selah gets here. How's that?
Yeah.
Father, thank you so much for Vanessa's story. Thank you for Selah, that a group of women said enough is enough, and they got involved. I'm so grateful for that. We just thank you that you are the great healer, that you could step into these women's lives and change them from the inside out. I pray for everyone here who, that we actually start looking around to see how we can help, because now it's a whole different ballgame. We've seen a different light on this whole subject. So I pray that we'll keep open eyes and open hearts about this. I pray, God, that more than anything, that women will come to know you, that they will come to know Jesus, and he will be the one that heals their lives. And God, we pray for Selah coming to Phoenix. I thank you for Brandy and her hard work and everything that she did. And I pray, God, that you would open the doors just miraculously so that we can get a home here and start saving these kids that need to be saved. And we're so appreciative of that. Thank you for the work that they do. Pray that we can be some kind of a small part of that, and that if anybody here wants to be involved, I pray you would continually not let them stop until they call Selah Freedom and get involved. So we thank you for that. Thank you, Jesus, for all you've done for us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, ladies, so much.
Maybe you're going to struggle every single day of your life with the situation that you have. Maybe you wouldn't yell at your kids, but do you gossip at all the girls? Okay? Maybe you wouldn't wear those skinny, but it's so true. It's like, what do people say about Christians? You're so judgmental. As we progress in our relationship with Christ, our lives will change. And now, instead of judging, when you believe the Bible and the Bible alone, I said, that's what we live for, is just this one